Hello and welcome. Today is another tutorial stream. So welcome to paint along with me. If you don't want to paint along, that's fine too. You can just watch and chat. I'm always happy to chat with you. So we're going to paint this little sparrow, and paint it fluffy and loosely, and it's simple, and I believe we could be pretty quick. This little sparrow is what we're going to paint. What you need for this tutorial is some watercolor paper. Will be just painting on the other side of the sketchbook. A set of watercolors. I'm using Schminke Academy. If you have a different set, use it. It has a very simple selection, and it's student grade. So it's actually very easy to replace, and if you have professional paints, use those. Everything will work. I just like to have the tutorials to be kind of accessible and easy to recreate for everyone with their supplies. So that's the goal. You will need some different watercolor brushes. These are pretty cheap, but they have a nice point. That's why I like to use them. A pencil that is rolling away, and an eraser. Hope your pencil doesn't want to escape you. Some mixing space. I'm going to use this little ceramic, it's a plate, as a palette. And some white gouache in the end for the highlight in the eye. You also can use a white gel pen or white ink, whatever you want to use. So, are you ready to start? I will also use some masking tape to get the clean white border. By the way, I've pinned the written tutorial as a comment in chat. It's on my blog. If you want to see all of the steps and work well with pre-written tutorials, you can use that. Other than that, we're going to paint in the sketchbook. And yeah, on stream, everything's live. If you have questions, feel free to ask. We can talk about anything. And I wanted to share with you the reference photo. This is the reference photo I chose for this one. I really like the pose of the bird, and I wanted to recreate this, but change the colors a lot into a more like bluish vintage hue, because I kind of like that. So I taped it to the table, and this will be the finished result. Let's start drawing. This is the line art that you can use. I need to fix that. This is the line art that you can use as a guide. You can use to trace if you like it. How am I? Oh, I'm good. I'm a little bit sorry that I'm late. So today I had the real life D&D group again, and we were done by 4, I think, and I wanted to take a little nap and overslept a little bit, but it was fun. It was mysterious. It was full of riddles. And yeah, so it was actually fun. I feel a little bit bad that I overslept though, because that was not my goal. But I'm well rested, I'm happy. Will you paint with us? Oh, I called you and Dante came. Yes. Awesome. Welcome. Hello. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. What color is the beanie? I'm currently knitting my last pair of the super thick cozy socks. Also, what always happens to me, remember that the heads are kind of longer than expected. Oh, I'm wearing my bird socks in honor of the stream. Oh my god, this sounds amazing. What are bird socks? It is gray. It's really nice, soft merino wool. Oh, that sounds nice and cozy. I love that. When I need to erase, I carefully dab away the graphite. I love it that everyone's creative and doing things. I can only knit in the winter, and so waiting till the temp drops before I can pick up my needles again. Yeah. Oh my god. That happens. If it's hot, I feel, and you knit, the hands become a little bit sweaty, I feel. So knitting is less fun. I totally feel that. But this year I also had to knit in summer to be done with all of the socks for Christmas. And I'm almost done with them. I will also draw the little legs here. And hint a little bit at I don't know what it's called, but I have kind of very, very cute cozy fluff on the chin. I like that. I love birds. I love painting birds. They're so much fun, honestly. But I have very little yarn left. And this color is discontinued. Oh no! But I sent my sister to check the store. I got this. They have more. Oh, I hope they have more. Yeah, I feel like beanies use up more yarn than I always expect. For me, they use about 1.5 skeins of yarn often, which is a lot because I always expect them to be like less than socks, but they're not. Once you've finished your drawing, you can use the eraser to dab away the graphite slightly so it's less visible in the finished painting. This is more than 2, it seems. Oh no. Maybe you had like smaller, yeah, if you have smaller skeins. Or however this is pronounced. I know the pronunciation is so weird for those things. Lana, are you using a photo reference for this painting? I do. I use this one. It's also, if you click on the blog, it's linked there. It's a reference from Pixabay, which is royalty free. I really like the pose, and I wanted to have a very realistic natural pose for the bird that I can work with. So I'm using Pixabay for references often. And then I go from there. You're painting with me, right? I hope you're painting with me. I will let my lines be slightly more visible than I would do it for myself, just so it shows up on camera, because otherwise it will be like barely visible. And I want you to see what we're doing. This palette gets stuck to everything. I can balance up and just paint a burp. Yeah. When I made the plan for the tutorials, I was like, I have to put a bird in there somewhere. No matter what I paint, one of them needs to be a bird. So, welcome to the birthday. Yay, birthday, yeah, totally. I will use my bigger brush to mix up paint for the background. And I will use phthalo blue because I noticed I use it way too little in this palette. Ultramarine and burnt umber are my preferred mix of colors. And those, I basically hit the pan with those two. But barely any of the other colors are touched. So we will change that. And I use this palette mainly for tutorials and stuff. So I guess most of my tutorials are like gray in shades of gray, blue, and brown. I will also use some tissues to sometimes dab my brush on when painting. And into the phthalo blue, I will use, I will mix some English red. Well, English red in this palette is used for burnt sienna, like instead of burnt sienna, so you can use burnt sienna to mix in. I think it's actually a kind of cool idea to use burnt sienna, English red instead of burnt sienna, because it's higher tinting. And burnt sienna tends to be a little bit weaker sometimes. What we'll get is kind of like a grayish muted turquoise color, which is kind of very pretty. He meant well. I will apply the mix of phthalo blue and English red here, and then I just dip my brush in water and spread it to the center, which will create a nice gradient. It's a mix that is granulating, which you cannot see right now because of the glare of the light. It's actually a very nice mix. The darker corners will kind of create a look of almost a vignette in the finished painting. I wish it was. It was unfortunately very much still alive. Oh, well, at least Moose didn't kill it. He was so proud of himself too. Yeah. Well, it's a big accomplishment for a cat. Like, I understand, but it's of course not fun to deal with. I hope you caught the mouse and set it free again. I will do the same in the other corner. Dab the brush into water and then spread the paint out. Oh, sorry. I went quiet. Every time I'm like focused, I go quiet. But we're painting the background. You can already see the vignette effect here. I will do this in this little corner too. There's indeed not very much of this background color, but enough to create some effect. And this one too. Well, I hope it survived. And can tell other mice about the adventure. There's a kind of D&D game for kids here, which is called Mouse Knight. And I've never played it, but I'm very tempted to play it. But also I have no kids. So, but if I had kids, I think I would play it with them. I will use a little bit of a more intense color and create the darker edge here for the vignette effect. This is called vignette in English too. I hope so. Try to get it to be the same angle. So for the next color that is the base color of the Sparrow, I will use yellow ochre as a base. Oh, you cannot see that. By the way, if you want to join in, we have, I think, 5 players by now. 4 with characters. 1 that needs to be done yet. But people from the community are welcome to join in. To the yellow ochre, I will add a little bit of English red, because it's high tinting. And because I want it a little bit more neutral, I will use some burnt umber. So mix all of your earth tones. And the burnt umber will kind of make it a little bit more neutral, so we'll get kind of a warmish neutral brown. And we don't need it in full intensity. We need it a little bit watered down, which I do on the corner here. The way, like I clean my brush and then pick up some of the color around here. And what I will do then, see, it's too much. Clean out the brush, picked up a little bit color. and then we can go on. And then I will apply it to the head of the bird, surrounding the eye. Like this. And I soften it out in some areas because I want the area here to be lighter and the belly to be lighter too. So I wash out the brush and then just spread out the paint to make it softer, nice. But I don't want it to be all white. So I kind of see where I put the colors. This under chin fluff, under beak fluff, I don't know how to call it, will be this nice warm color too. Sorry if you can hear Dante in the background. He came from a walk. So, and previously he was always waiting in the living room for his dinner and stuff. And now he's checking on me and is waiting with me. So he's allowed to go eat. I know. He has a fun life. And I will also add more here. Underneath the wing. Oh, it granulates nicely too already. That, I think, for student grade paints, I think Schmink Academy does very well. They behave super nicely. They don't have a strong flow, but they're nice tinting, they have a nice hue. They're really nice paints. I also cover some of, like in a very light hue, the leg here. Like that. And I will apply some of it, a little bit more water, to the wing, because I want to have this nice warm undertone too. But I'm leaving some areas kind of very light or even white, because the feathers on the wing have the most striking markings, which are most recognizable. Yeah. So anyway, I'm happy. I'm living a good life. I'm excited for things. I hope you're excited for things too. And I also put some of it on the tail here in like stripes. Very simple, very easy. I will add a tiny bit here on the back of the head, because it kind of have, not hair, but you know, the heads on sparrows are a little bit darker, and I want to have this warmth there. And I really enjoy the granulation. I think most of it comes from burnt umber and English red in this case. And I feel it's also nice that student grade paints have granulation because, you know, pigments. So it's something that you learn to work with, but it's not as strong as in some other pigments. So it's really neat. And then you can let it dry slightly, because as soon as the belly area has lost the sheen like from water, we can try and paint the branch here and go on like area by area. But before I do that, I will soften up some of these edges here. I want to keep the soft feather look, which is simple. Just re-wet the area here and use a tissue and dab. Very, very simple. And because I dabbed away too much, I will add a little bit. Because, you know, it's okay. I've done that so many times and then wondered why I have a spot on my page where I can paint. Yeah, it happens to all of us. I can't blame you. I turned my palette again because we will use the same mix from the sky for the branch. I always wash my hands before I touch watercolor paper. That's what I do too. That's why I feel very secure touching my paper. Every time before stream, I wash hands, like, because I'm never sure like what I will touch. And every time before I paint, I wash hands. Like, I'm so sure I cannot keep my hands to myself, so I need to wash them before I paint. I'm just waiting for the blue to dry on mine. Nice! Add a little bit of English red to the mix until it's a more of a neutral gray color. And because we will paint everything with basically very similar mixes, it will be all kind of cohesive. Yay, Keep. Yeah, yay, Keep. Go, Keep. Go, painters. I struggle a bit with birds, so this might not be top tier. Oh no! Feathers need patience that I'm often. Okay, so the feathers we will paint very loosely, and it will be okay. You have the patience for that, because I myself have no patience to paint like every little detail. The trick is to act as if you do. Paint the details. It will look good. I believe in you. Yeah, I believe in you. We believe in everyone. You got this. Oh, I love that you cheer people on to paint. This is so good. Yay! You can do it, people! Oh, you're just the best here. Like, just the best people. It's a very, very watered down mix that I apply here. As you can see, it's more gray than the background is, because we added a little bit more of the English red to it. But on the palette, it separates nicely, so if you wanted to use it, you could pick up a gray mix that's more gray or more reddish or more bluish even if you wanted. Try to paint around the legs, because, well, we're not painting gouache and we're not masking, so we need to do the classic work of painting around things. It's possible. Use the tip of your brush. If you want to be careful, hold the brush closer to the bristles so you have a little bit more control, and hold it a little bit more vertical, so only the tip touches the paper. That way you have more control over where the brush goes and won't cover up areas you wanted to preserve. You know, the way you hold your brush matters in watercolors. I will also try not to paint the other leg. I can add a little bit more color to where shadows would be. So I use a little bit more concentrated paint. Would be around here. It will flow a little. Let it flow. Everything's fine. We're doing good. It can dry a little bit uneven. It will be wood. There will be a pattern on top. Don't worry. Everything's fine. I'm washing out my brush. I think you can hear it bubbling in the background when I do that. I feel like I can never get the proportions right in birds, but I'm feeling good about this one so far. The proportions of birds. Okay, so think of them they're like drop shaped with a ball head. This is birds for me. Like their body is drop shaped. And then they have a ball and legs. This is birds for me. I mean, they have different bodies too. Some are fluffier, some are less fluffier. One of my favorite teas is hibiscus. Oh, nice. Oh, that's delicious. Now I'm second guessing my tea choices. But I think I will still stick with green tea today. I think for me it's mostly the head that always turn out wonky. Okay, for the head. So what I catch myself every time with the head. So the eye is always proportional to the beak. Like it's very related to the beak. If you look at the beak, around here are the eye corners, the beak corners, like the corners of the mouth. And the eye is often like just above it. And there's usually a very small distance between the beak and the eye on most birds. I've never encountered a bird where the beak was here and the eye, I don't know, farther away. The distance between beak and eye is usually not that far, but the distance between the eye and the head here is usually much, much further. So what I catch myself often is that I place the eye too far away from the beak and then it just looks wrong. The distance between the eye and the beak is about like another eye wide. That's like not a rule, but it's an observation I made from painting many, many, many birds. And this distance between the eye and the back of the head is much further. If you would make it shorter, like to paint the eye, that the distance between the eye and here and the eye and here would be the same, it would look off. You're right about them starting close to the beak corner. Yeah, I know. I've painted a lot of birds. And it's the case for most birds. That was super helpful, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here to share knowledge. Like, everything I can think of, I will tell you. It's usually the eyes and beaks, but I think we got this time. Yeah. For me, it's also the eyes and beak. Like if the eye is too far away, like too high from the beak or too far away, it looks off. But also if the eye is placed like wrong, like if the head is, I don't know, drawn too short, it looks wrong too. Which happens to me. I started with the head like line here and then I corrected it. I wonder if I'm usually putting my eyes too high. Maybe. I don't know. Yes, that's always been my struggle with birds. But if you have figured it out now, you can pay attention to it, and then all your birds will turn out beautiful and wonderful and perfect. Yay! Speaking of the beaks and the eye location, something that came to me during the break. In some cases, like in heron storks, pelicans, and other birds, they isn't even feathers in between the beak and the eye. In some cases, there's like a skin bridge, which you probably cannot see in the distance, but you can see it in photos. So the beak and the eye are definitely very close together, very related, and if you pay attention to those, the face, like the relations of them and the face, it will be easier. In some cases, this part of skin is even colorful. Like I think there's like the great egret, where this bridge of skin is yellow. I had a heron that crossed my bicycle path and I was only 3 meters away from me. I had to slow down. Wow. That must have been felt so special. Oh, that's impressive. I love birds. For the next step, we will do the eye, beak, and feet. And I will use a small brush for that because the eye is small. And I will zoom in so you can see better. It's a little bit rough, it's fine. It's only the first layers. It will be pretty, I promise. For the eye, use some yellow ochre. I always kind of pre-mix it a little bit on the palette so I have a nice consistency. And then apply just within the eye, within the iris. You can cover the pupil, but do not paint outside the eye. I have a little bit of dust there. Apply yellow ochre. Then do the same with English red, a tiny bit. Tiny bit of English red. Like this. Let it mix into each other. It's okay. Don't touch it. It will create kind of a glow in the eye. So even on the small birds, you can create a colorful iris without too much fuss or getting into detail with it. And the colorful iris will add... I forgot a little bit of blue in the eye beforehand. Oh well. It's fine. And next one, use burnt umber and place it only here at this corner. It will all run into each other, but there will be a very subtle glow of yellow ochre, then English red, and then burnt umber. When we add the next layer to the eye, it will create like the 3D effect and more of detail. But this is a base layer, will create the look of like glow within the small eye of the bird, which I think is important. For the beak, use yellow ochre to use here in the corners of the beak. Spread it out a little bit, like a tiny bit. Welcome back. Got some tea. Oh, what tea did you get? Nice. For the rest of the beak, use the same gray we used for the branch, but in a higher consistency. So it will be like very gray. I literally have it still on my palette here. It's a mix of phthalo blue and English red. And I apply it here. As you can see, it's almost black. But if you wash it out, it will be gray. Let the colors run into each other a little bit. It's fine. I add a little bit of burnt umber on the lower beak here. And more of the gray mix. Watch my brush out. And then soften out the color. So the blend here is kind of smooth. Here we too will add more detail in the next steps. Like this. Then I will move my paper so you can see better. And we will paint the feet. Remember, these are only first layers on those areas, so we will add the details. We will add the details in my way of adding details. Quick and loosely, and it will look amazing. Because, I don't know, I noticed that I tend to basically have lots of steps to set up the painting, and then have one step to add all of the details, and will look just good. And I'm sharing it with you because, you know, we need the fun times. For the legs, I mix yellow ochre and English red into kind of like an orange, like slightly muted orange. And I want it to be watered down a little bit more, but my brush not to be as wet, like this. And then I will cover the feet. Sorry. I like herbal teas. Some of them have a nice sweetness and softness to them. I don't know what's causing that, but it's delicious. I'm also not paying attention to detail right now. This is something for next steps, where we will shadow it, separate the toes, claws, and it will look wonderful. I'm also painting this leg. For the area here, I like to make it a little bit fuzzy, like as if the leg is like hiding in between feathers. It's not like a straight edge. And this is how we set up eyes, beak, and feet. If I promise you simple, I do simple. Like that. While this dries, I can mix the next color. It will be... I know today we have a lot of color mixes, but I promise it's worth it. So for the next mix, use phthalo blue as a base again. You know, I have to use more of the phthalo blue now, since I noticed that I use it so little. And add burnt umber to it. . So you get a nice warm greenish. Oh, it's not that greenish. Brown. And with that color, we will darken up some of the areas. It will be basically the middle tone. It will be not super dark, so don't use it in a concentrated form. I will place it on top of the head. And I will be careful around the beak. And once I place the color, to soften it out, I wash out my brush. I dab it on a piece of tissue, and then I soften the edge. Your brush should be damp to do that, so you get a proper soft edge. I will add a little bit of this darker shade here between the eye and the beak. And some of these lines I leave like sharp and dark, not softened out. And I kind of add a little line from this angle of the eye here to the back of the head, which I will somewhat soften out because I don't want it to be super harsh. Yeah, we need to pay a little bit attention in this step. It will be okay. Then pick up just a teeny tiny bit of the color and paint soft, very soft strokes just with the side of your brush to give it a little bit like the look of the feathers. I hold my brush on an angle and there's just a teeny tiny bit of paint on my brush. Not much, I swear, not much. And it's enough to create those effects of soft shadows and soft fluffy feathers. It's like soft strokes you do on paper. You see? My brush is just slightly damp, if anything. I add some of these very, very light strokes to the belly area too. As you can see, I just pick up paint on the side, like not in the big puddle of the mix, but just with the tip of the brush, teeny tiny bits. Not much. I add shadows to the feathers underneath here, to the belly. And underneath the wing. And some of them are a little bit bluish, some of them are a little bit more brown, that's fine. The variation is what makes it special. I add a little bit of wetter shadows, more in depth. The area here and here, basically behind the leg. And around the butt, because it needs to look fluffy. Don't forget to leave a little bit of white. Be loose. As you can see, I hold my brush also like at the back, so I Butts need to be fluffy. That's a rule. If you paint birds, their butts need to be fluffy. Like, this is a law of nature. And as artists, we cannot fight that law. So I'm holding my brush to the back here, so I'm painting very loosely here. Small strokes. Almost no pressure to the brush. I also used the same mix in a slightly more intense color and apply it to the back. Not the back, well, it is the back and the wing, but not completely. I let it fluffy butts, they're definitely in the mask. Right? You cannot, I swear, I cannot paint a bird and have it not have a fluffy butt. That feels like inherently wrong. It's like, I don't know. I don't even have a comparison how wrong it is. I will add some of the color also here as a shadow to this fluffy area. It looks a little bit like a ghost, but I swear it will be okay. And I kind of set the tone here for the wing. I want to have a big feather here and then a set of feathers, like the middle length feathers. Here we have shorter feathers, but here we have the longer feathers, which folded are more shaped like lines. And this is how I set up the feathers for the tail, for the wing. As you can see, I'm not painting every feather. I'm using my brush and the shape of shadows to create the illusion of this. For the next steps, I will actually use slightly more English red in this sky mix. So it's now, I used too much English red. English red is very strong Technicolor. So it's kind of a very nice chocolatey brown almost. This is the fun part. Yeah, this is the time, like, this is for real the fun part. But before we do the feathers, I will do the eye and the beak stuff. Like, small details first. It's a mix of phthalo blue and English red that creates kind of a darkish color, darkish brown color. I have a small brush, and with the small brush, give the bird kind of an eyeliner. Be careful. Also, can you see that we still have this glow in the eye? Be careful with the eye. Which I never had done before. And now they are relaxing and doing some noises. Nice. Almonds and chestnuts, yeah. Winter is such a delicious time. And I use the same mix to paint a pupil, which is kind of round, like this. I don't have a small brush. Would be possible to use a fine black pen. Yeah, but it will look different. You can try to use a bigger brush. I know I can do it with some of my brushes because they have a very, very fine tip. because even my big brush has a very fine tip, as you can see. But it needs a lot of control and be painted very carefully. I have to wait for it to really dry. Yeah, it needs to be dry. If it's not dry, it will bleed. But we chatted, so, you know. And because we chatted, my painting has dried. I will use the same mix also. And just with the tip of the brush, paint little lines around the eye, because it's where the eyelid is. Birds have eyelids too. And this gives them a little bit more character. And then I will use the same color because, you know, this is what we use now to kind of make little lines towards the beak. It's basically the eye corner. And I will use just some lines. I will wash it out and use a softer hue of dark. Softer shade to make like the line towards the back. And I will soften it out because I don't want this one to be super strong, but this one can be because it's basically the shadow in the eye corner. For the beak, I create kind of a shadow around here, the tip of the nose, and I drag it out and soften it out slightly. And I use a little bit more to paint the line to separate the beak. It's also why it needs to be dry, because otherwise this line will bleed. Like this. And paint a little bit of shadow underneath here. I made a dot, it's bled, but it's kind of where the nostril is. It's very close to the feathers, almost hidden by them. I have a slightly wetter paint now, and I paint dabs here to make the feathers look soft. Twitch warns me again that the ads are starting in 15 minutes, but that's fine. Sometimes I paint with only the tip, and sometimes I push down a little bit. Because it's a small brush, it's not like we're painting big area or something when we do that. But it creates some texture, some nice fluffy feathers on the head. This was too much paint. If you have a piece that's too dark, wash out the brush, soften it out, it will be okay. Like this. Until I'm happy. You do everything until you're happy. Like, this is the measurement for everything. We will do the same underneath here. For these fluffy feathers. Basically underneath the beak. Very light. Just some fluff. And now I'm going in with a bigger brush because now is the fun time, okay? Are you ready for the fun time? I pick up like a lot of paint. My brush is full of very saturated dark paint, and I go in on the back and paint where the dark feathers are. I do it very loosely, very simple. Make some dots. You know, this is how I paint feathers. I think now you can see best. I want this feather to be nice and dark. He's looking so cute. Thank you. That's my goal. I mean, he looked cute before I came around. Birds just look cute. I like birds. So in case anyone is still doubting it, like I just like birds. They're fun. And I'm just placing the brush, pushing it down sometimes, making some of the feathers in strategical places longer because, you know, the feathers here are shorter, but here they become slightly longer because it's just how the wing is structured. And the feathers here are long, but they're folded, so you can only see the edge of the feathers. And that's why they show us lines in many birds. Same goes for the tail. It might be black on top or very dark on top, but underneath it's not. But because it's folded, you can see some black lines on top, on the tail between some very light ones. This is also the darkest area that we paint. And this is as much as I paint feathers. I think that's doable keep, right? I have some washed out, same color, that I add some shadows here. I add a tiny bit of shadow here, which I will wash out a little bit, you know? Kind of like this effect. It's accidental, but it's nice. I will use also some of the same color for the feet and shade them a little bit. As you can see, here I could use the smaller brush. Mine looks like a true puffball. Nice. Yours is well fed. That's perfect. So you just mastered the fluffiness of birds. Perfect. I added some shadows here. Also to the claws. Don't forget the claws. His tail's too small, so he looks thick. To be fair, my tail could go on outside of the frame. Like, wait. Ooh. This is pretty cool. Oh, thanks for sharing. It's beautiful. I will also add some here to this leg. I washed out my brush and I will just slightly go over these with my damp brush, clean damp brush, to kind of soften the shadows a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. We'll be okay. Birds are so cool. Also with the spread out feathers, it really shows how the feathers are structured, right? And when they fold it, it shows. My brain is going places. My brain is too fast. I'm adding a little bit of very light shadow here to the belly area to shape the belly a little bit. It's a very blue shadow too, it's fine. You know, this way it's all brought together a little bit. Oh my god, this is too dark. Hey, Achromatic Kitten, welcome. Today we have another tutorial. This is too dark. I'm not happy with that. So I will pick some of the color up. And that's much better. Oh, I cannot be unhappy with the bird. Let's paint on and do fun things. I will use the same mix we used before for these dark areas and paint the branch. Are you ready to do that? I hope you are. So we're painting the branch now. And to paint that, I have kind of a, pretty thick paint on my brush. And I will start applying it on the bottom here, basically painting lines. We'll make it in several layers, go over them, and make some lighter, make some darker. And that will create the tree texture. Now I've washed out the brush. And as you can see, it's much softer now. And going over the branch still in the areas we've already painted, it softens them out a little bit. And we can create the tree bark texture. Of course, around the feet, I have to be a little bit more careful. Create like a little bit of shadow here underneath the claws and stuff. But here too, I will go and paint the lines of the tree bark because I like it simple. I like it loose. And honestly, it makes me happy to paint it like that. So if it makes us happy, let's do things that make us happy, right? That's what life is about. No need to make us happy. No need to make us unhappy with our art. That's what I wanted to say. The paint separates like this mix nicely and creates sometimes like more bluish areas and sometimes more reddish areas. And although it's basically all the same mix, it looks different. I also paint like, I don't know how it's called, like the branch circles where they break off. Is it tree eyes? Tree bark eyes? I don't know. The spiral circles. Just paint it loosely. Paint it nice. I deepen the shadow here. Bear with me for 10 minutes, I will catch up. Yeah. I know you'll catch up. You're always so quick. I know you're doing a great job. You're all good people. You can use a little bit of dry brush if you like. Honestly, that's what I would do for the branch. I will use a little bit of the dark shadow to add a tiny bit of fluff here. Like very last shadows between feathers. Tiny bit like here. Tiny bit underneath the beak. Wherever you feel like shadow is missing. Just tiny dots. Especially on the bird itself. Use it for tiny dots. I will use a tiny bit of slightly watered down paint. Because this is for me already like the finishing touches, kind of. I will give it somewhat of an outline because I want to separate it a little bit more from the background, which I will soften out. But only on this side, like on the lighter side. And with a smaller brush, I will separate the toes a little bit again. Kind of paint a shadow underneath the claws. And I want also to add a little bit of deeper shadow to this area here to make it look a little bit more fluffy. I need to check, like, this is where I check the birds, so I'm super happy with it. I will deepen this line between like the beak and do a line here. I will put a dot for the nostril because the other bled a little bit too much. And then I will let it dry because in the next step we'll only add some highlights with gouache and then it's going to be done. And it will be tiny highlights, just like the dot on the eye, the cherry on top. I mean, it's a pretty simple tutorial, right? I feel like it's very beginner friendly, but also has techniques that can be used in advanced paintings. Use a small brush and wet your gouache because it needs a little bit. Professional gouache rewets easier. I use Schminke Horadam. Schminke Academy rewets very, very poorly and has less coverage. So if it comes to gouache, I recommend to use the good stuff. Although it's probably not as bad with other colors, but the white has just more coverage. And I like gouache because you can put it in a palette and carry it with you. With a small brush, I paint some highlight in the eye. Just a teeny tiny bit. And you see, he's instantly alive. If you took away the step, you're faster than me and also you're cool. Paint a little highlight on the beak. You can paint some little areas like on the head. Give this part a little bit. And also use a tiny bit of it on the claws, because those usually reflect some light too. You can use it like a tiny bit on the top of the legs, because they have skin. They can be like not reflective, but look a little bit rounded. And what you can do is add tiny dots around the eye where the eyelid is. And that's it. Honestly, that's it. Don't do more. You don't need more. Well, I need a little bit more. I want to add a tiny line here on the beak. I want to give the beak a little bit more shininess. But now we're done. Don't do more. And I will zoom in. And I feel like the face looks full of life now. And it's just because of those little drops of white. I will remove the tape now carefully. I know this paper isn't ripping. It's good paper. It's ripping a little bit, but it's because of the decollete edge. Because we're done. And you did so well painting with me. I'm so glad you painted with me. This makes me so happy. Like, aw, you're awesome people. You know, painting should be relaxing. Painting should be something that is fun. And painting should be something enjoyable for you. So keep it fun. Paint whatever you like. Paint whatever brings you joy and whatever excites you. No matter if you're consistent in your style, etc. Even if you try out different styles, because you right now are fascinated by them, you have the passion for them, it will help you to develop something on your own, because you can take pieces from styles, like elements, and put them together, and it will increase your skill. Have a good Sunday, everyone. Have a nice sleep, nice dreams, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!